Hello. Today, I'm sharing my top 10 PS1 games, the ones I played the most as a kid. This list is based entirely on my personal experiences from the 2000s, and it's all about the games I spent the most time with. This isn't an objective top 10, or based on things like sales or review scores. It's a personal ranking shaped by my own memories and the fun I had with these games. Some of my choices might seem a bit unusual, or even controversial, since not all of them were critically acclaimed. But for me, these games were a huge part of my childhood. Number 10, FIFA 2005. This is a weird pick, and honestly, I didn't even want to include this game on the list, because even back then I felt like it wasn't that good. However, I didn't have any other football game to play that was better. I knew about ISS Pro Evolution 2, but unfortunately I never got the game, so I had to stick with this one. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great either. Probably a solid 6 out of 10 game, maybe 7 out of 10 at best. Despite that, I spent a lot of time playing it simply because I love football. I remember getting money for my birthday from my grandma, and later I was in the city with my dad. We went to a game shop, and this was probably in 2004. The shop had a lot of games for other consoles, especially PS2, but they still had some PS1 titles. I don't recall exactly what games they had, but none of them really excited me, except for FIFA 2005. I already loved football, and had played the FIFA 2001 demo version before, which wasn't bad at all. So I thought, you know what, I'll get FIFA 05, that's it. I ended up spending a lot of time with this game, so looking back, I wouldn't call it wasted money. But if they'd had ISS Pro Evolution 2 or another football game, I would have definitely chosen that instead. That's why I was hesitant to include this game on my list. However, the reality is that I probably spent around 300 hours playing it, so it feels fair to give it a spot here. I don't have much else to say about the game. It didn't do anything particularly special. It was just a mediocre football game, but one I played a lot because it was all I had. Number 9, NHL 2001. I think a lot of people might have already clicked off this video because sports games aren't very popular with players, but let me tell you, this game was so much fun. I don't watch hockey and I'm not really a fan of the sport, but I still loved playing this. I got this game from the same shop where I bought FIFA 2005, but this was a used copy and very cheap. I still remember it cost around $8, and this was probably in 2002 or 2003. Looking back, that was an insanely cheap price and money well spent. I decided to pick this game because I'd played some hockey game on an old console before, probably one of the Sega systems. I don't remember which game it was, but I loved it. It didn't have real teams. Instead, it felt more like a story campaign where you had to beat different teams. After each win, you'd get a cutscene and then face another team with unique characters. I don't know how else to describe it, but it left an impression on me. When I got NHL 2001, I'd never played real hockey before and had never watched the sport, so I didn't even know the rules. Because of that, I turned off all the rules and any formation changes. I picked the Florida Panthers and created 5 custom players with maxed out stats. 99 overall myself, my dad, and 3 of my school friends. I played only with this team. It was a lot of fun when I didn't have to worry about rules and had the best team possible, but I still lost a lot of games. One thing that stood out to me was the goalkeeper Martin Brodeur. He was ridiculously hard to score against, and I remember being scared of him every time I faced his team. Number 8, Gran Turismo 2. I have to be honest, I can't fully remember if it was Gran Turismo 1 or 2 I spent the most time on, but after looking at some gameplay footage, I'm pretty sure it was Gran Turismo 2. I loved playing the career mode, or what I think was called the session mode. Collecting cars was so much fun. Getting a license in this game was hard. I was stuck on it for months, but when I finally beat it, I felt like a king. The endurance races were insane. Around 50 laps that probably took an hour to complete. The reward was a special car, which made it worth the effort. I remember playing one of those endurance races at night, It felt like a city track with lots of lights. On my old TV, the lights sometimes confused me, making it hard to tell whether I had to steer right or left. About 30 laps in, I was in first or second place, right behind the lead car. Then I crashed because I took a wrong turn, got stuck, and lost about 50 seconds to the first car. I never managed to catch up, which meant I wasted an hour on that race without winning. It was frustrating. But I tried again the next day, and I finally beat the race and got the special car. I didn't understand cars at all back then, so I would only look at the horsepower. I remember being shocked when I found a used car with over 1,000 horsepower. However, when I took it to a race, I was disappointed. It wasn't as fast as I expected. My favorite track was Super Speedway, a NASCAR-style track. That's also where I learned about drafting. Staying behind another car makes your car go faster than normal. This game was a lot of fun and a really great racing experience. Probably the best racing game on the PS1. Number 7, Tekken 3. Here's a fun fact. The first game I ever played was Mortal Kombat when I was probably 3 or 4 years old. I was absolutely mind-blown that you could control 2 characters and have them fight each other. So, naturally, when my friend got Tekken 3 on PS1, I was all over it. I borrowed the game from him so many times, and we played it non-stop. My favorite characters were Warang and Eddie, though I ended up playing nearly everyone. I loved the progression system, where you completed arcade mode, defeated 10 levels, and then faced a boss at the end. You'd unlock new characters, and I worked hard to unlock everyone in the game, except Dr. Boskanovich. To unlock him, you had to complete a special beat-em-up mode. At the end of this game mode, you face Dr. Boskanovich, and the game carries over your remaining health. I was never at full health by the time I reached him, and Dr. Boskanovich always defeated me. His moveset was really weird and unpredictable. He kept falling to the ground, making him hard to hit. I know some people say he's the weakest character, but I personally never managed to beat him. I eventually gave up. One of the best parts of Tekken 3 was the volleyball minigame. That was probably my favorite mode in the game. Overall, it's a classic fighting game, and there's no denying how much fun it was. A true 10 out of 10. Number 6, Hogs of War. Now this one might be a bit of a surprise to you, but trust me, I played Hogs of War a lot. I got the game while I was on vacation with my parents. There was a guy selling games on the street, and he had some cheap PS1 titles. My parents bought 2 games for me, and Hogs of War was one of them. If you don't know about this game, it's pretty much a 3D version of Worms, but with pigs instead of worms and third-person camera. It had a great progression system where you leveled up your pigs after each mission, and there were different classes to choose from: sniper, medic, etc. The last mission in the game was incredibly tough. I had no clue how to beat it, but I discovered an exploit. One of the pigs had a hiding ability, and if you used a box to hide, you could push the enemy pigs into the water, and they would get sick and get damage every round like poison. This is how I completed the game. This game is shockingly underrated, in my opinion. I really enjoyed it, and all my friends liked it as well, so I'm a bit confused about the low ratings. I think this game is great both for solo play and co-op with friends. Number 5, Vigilante 8. Here's another one that you might not expect, Vigilante 8. It's essentially a Twisted Metal clone, but I never played Twisted Metal growing up, so Vigilante 8 was my go-to-car fighting game. It had a fun solo campaign where you could unlock new characters, and I remember that the final unlockable character was an alien in a spaceship. He was incredibly overpowered, but the real fun came when I played this game in co-op with my friends and my dad. It was the only game that my dad played, and we spent countless hours playing it together. My favorite maps were the one in the snow and on the farm. The destructible environments were awesome for the time. You could break trees, knock down bridges, and destroy pretty much everything. I loved playing as Manta, but I also enjoyed using characters like the school bus driver and the guy with bees or Jefferson. It was a fantastic game, Number 4, Metal Gear Solid. The classic masterpiece that everyone knows. It's only number 4 for me, even though I absolutely love the game. What's crazy to me is that me and my friends, actually completed the game, especially looking back now, considering we didn't speak English and had no clue what was going on. I remember we were stuck for a very long time on the Sniper Wolf part, where she shoots the girl who's been helping you, or the part where you have to steer the rocket launcher rocket through the rooms, and of course at the end, where you have to freeze the card and then make it hot again. It probably took us around 6 months to complete the game, but we never gave up because it was just so good and so much fun. I don't have much more to say about it. Everyone knows this game. 10 out of 10. Number 3, WWF SmackDown. 2, Know Your Role. My first experience with the game was through a demo that my friend had. We loved fighting games, but this was something completely different. You could fight in the crowd, attack the referee, and do so much more. It blew my mind. I ended up getting the full game from the same place where I bought Hogs of War at that time. I didn't know what wrestling or WWE was. I had never even seen it before. But the game was so much fun that you didn't need to know anything about WWE or the wrestlers. Anyone could just pick up the game and play it. Unfortunately, we can't say the same about WWE games nowadays. I spent hours in the session mode. I could control any wrestler, or even create my own. My first created character was a big guy with a mask like Kane, and I made myself the manager of The Rock. I had 0 matches as the manager, so I restarted the career mode and created myself as a wrestler instead. That's where the fun really began. I remember fighting everyone, even wrestlers I didn't know at the time. The game even had real-life cutscenes, like when Stone Cold destroyed Vince McMahon's bus. I had no idea what was going on, but I thought they had recorded those specifically for the game. I also remember that I was the champion, and one of the belts was held by Vince McMahon, who had an unbeaten streak of 25 matches. I hated that guy so much. I was also scared of him, because he was just some random old guy beating everyone in the game. Shane McMahon was also really strong. You could also unlock new characters, and one of them was Michael Cole, who is a commentator in real life, but in the game, he was ridiculously strong. I was scared of these normal, unathletic guys who seemed so powerful in the game. I also remember rage quitting the game because I wanted to be an unbeatable champion. The game forced me into an Iron Man match that lasted 30 minutes in real time. I won, but after the match, a cutscene played where the Dudley boys attacked me and threw me through a table, and then the game showed that I lost my belt. I rate this game very highly. It was a lot of fun to play solo, and an amazing co-op game with great customizations. It's an amazing game, even for non-WWE fans. Number 2, Resident Evil 3. I love survival horror, and maybe this is unexpected since this is the only survival horror game on the list. Whoops, spoiler. I didn't want to include Resident Evil 1 or 2 because even though I played them, I got stuck and never got fully invested in the games. The same goes for Silent Hill. If this list were top 15, I would have included them, but I felt like they didn't deserve a spot in my top 10. However, Resident Evil 3 is different. It's the only game in the series that I 100% completed, even though I didn't speak English. And like with the other Resident Evil games, I got stuck a lot. But I always managed to push forward and figure out what to do. Of course, this game is so memorable mainly because of Nemesis. In my opinion, he was the best enemy in any PS1 game ever made. He's a legendary character. I'm really disappointed with what they did to him in the RE3 remake, because the original Nemesis was so cool, scary, and dangerous. I remember getting stuck a lot, so I would learn the rooms and know whether there were zombies or not, allowing me to move quickly through them. But when I finally figured out what to do and entered a room that didn't have enemies, I suddenly heard stars off camera. It was so scary that I had to force myself to keep playing. I was always ready to run out of the room or hide under the table. My good friend often watched me play, and he probably saw the whole playthrough. I remember telling him to play this part with Nemesis, but he was too scared and didn't want to play. I had to face my fear and push through it, which is probably why I remember this game so well and have such good memories of it. After completing the game, I discovered a new game mode that, in my opinion, is the best feature of any Resident Evil game. In this mode, you could choose a character and make your way through the map to escape from the city. It wasn't like the hunk mode in the RE2 remake. This was different. You earned points based on how well you did, which you could then spend in a shop that offered classic Resident Evil unlockables, like the assault rifle for your next playthrough or the infinite ammo rocket launcher. What I really liked about this was that you didn't have to replay the game on hard mode, limit yourself to 3 healing items, or complete it under 2 hours. You could play the game however you wanted and grind points in this separate game mode, just having fun in the main game. I wish they'd bring back this mode, but I feel like that's not going to happen. And by the way, I still love Resident Evil. I 100% at RE2 Remake and RE7, but if I could choose, I'd prefer this mode with grinding points and then buying rewards that I want. 10 out of 10 game. In my opinion, it's the best Resident Evil game with the most memorable characters and overall vibe. For me, this game is up there with Resident Evil 4. Number 1, Driver 2. Probably an unexpected pick, but for me, Driver 2 was a mind-blowing game. I love racing games, but this wasn't just a racing game. It's not racing at all. It was like GTA before GTA. It had the first 3D city where you could get out of the car. I couldn't believe my eyes when I first saw this game and discovered that I could get out of the car and enter a different one. I spent so much time just driving through the streets of Chicago, acting like a real person. I also found all the secret hidden cars, but the craziest part to me was that I completed the whole game, the story and all the story missions. I was so happy and proud of myself when I did that, because this game was really hard. I call Driver 2 the Dark Souls of car games. If you made one mistake, the mission was over, and you had to restart from the beginning. I remembered there was one mission that I thought was impossible. The guy started driving, and you started on foot. You had to enter a car and catch him. He turned right, and then drove through the mountains. It was really hard to drive there, and he was so fast. You also had to dodge traffic, and if you made one mistake, you'd crash and fall into the water. I completed this mission through a glitch. I discovered that if you were fast enough at the beginning when he turned right and you didn't brake, but kept going forward, you could get in front of him and he would start pushing you. This damaged him, and he almost instantly died. It probably took me around 500 tries, but eventually it worked, and I beat the mission after hours of trying. I also remember a mission where you had to follow a helicopter. It didn't go that fast at first, but at the end, it unrealistically accelerated and went super fast through twisting, curvy roads. You had to drive fast and get in front of the helicopter to have enough time at the end of the mission. I remember that it was hard for me because I was around 10 years old at the time, so it was a huge accomplishment for me. Maybe that's why I remember this game so well and have such good memories from it. Wow, this turned out to be much longer than I expected, but I really wanted to share my personal experiences with PS1 games. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. What do you think of my list? And what are your top PS1 games? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe and help me reach my goal of 1,000 subs. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.